Hello, this is Dr. Mike, and I forgot to record the live chat on Wednesday. I'm sorry for that. So I thought that I would make up for that by doing just a short video to talk about some of the things that we talked about in the live chat and to share some other things with you. So this is new. Part of it will be new for everyone. And then the other parts you will be a kind of a review from what we talked about. As I've said, writing is a major part of any history course, and it is of this one as well. And at the front end, I really want to try to allay your fears and to make you the very best writer you can be just with simple knowledge. I realize that many of you, number one, haven't maybe written anything of substance, especially in academic writing, in years. Maybe you've never done that. Maybe that's just not something that was a part of your educational past. And so it's really important that you get down the facts about Turabian and things of that nature. If you are a history major, as I've said, and you are going to pursue possibly going to graduate school, which I encourage, you do need to know Turabian, and Turabian will be a major part of your academic life in the future. Let me say this about that word, the title of that process. It's usually called Chicago-Turabian. There are actually two different formats within that. And so you'll be aware when you see it of the one you need to be in. You need to be in the Turabian part, not Chicago. Chicago will often use in-text citations instead of footnotes. It is sometimes mostly used by people in some of the social sciences like psychology and some others. So with history, it's usually footnotes, and it is a reference page that is titled bibliography at the end. And you will always never have sources on the bibliography page that you're not using as a footnote that you cite in the paper. And that's of vital importance. There's a lot of things about that as we go along. I have a sheet that I'm going to send this link attached to that talks about grading considerations, about academic sources, about the writing project, and about being late and how we need to keep up in this course. We cannot wait until the end of 8 weeks and come back and do this, turn and burn thing, and you get the right education. But also, it's not fair to your classmates who do turn things in on time and don't. I try not to take points, but sometimes if it's extremely late, I don't have any choice. Part of what you get in education is learning to budget time and to budget your work and get it in on time, meet deadlines. And so there are some other things that you learn in this course that are of great importance. So first of all, I'd like to show you how to use the footnoting function on Word. This is something that we did talk about in our class on our live chat on Wednesday night. I'm going to take you to the document. This is the document that you'll be getting from me, so you don't have to worry about the content. But if we were going to do a footnote here, the correct way to do that in Word, and Word makes it so easy. Some of you have spent a lot of time trying to make the numbers line up and all this stuff work. You don't have to do that. You are working against yourself when you don't use the function. So say this sentence here that we wanted to footnote. You put your cursor at the very next space to the punctuation, and then you go up to references and you go insert footnote. Okay, when you do that, almost immediately two things happen. Number one, it places your number for you. And number two, it takes you to the bottom where you can now enter your footnote. One thing you need to realize is that your footnotes need to be in 10-point font and not 12 point. So you have to, I've never found a way to make that automatically work. There might be in Word, but you do have to go back and you have to reduce the size, including, I would include my, I'll do it right after the whole text. So here's how you would do a footnote. Between footnotes and the source on the last page, there are some differences that you need to note. In a footnote, you will use the first name, last name convention. I'm gonna put my book in just to show you how it's done. It is Michael A. Smith, comma, and then the book title. Okay, book title. The book title will be in italics. And then you will put city of publication. Rainforest, Arkansas, New Leaf Press, comma, year of publication. Okay. If there's a particular page number, say your information that you're citing, you need to have page 42 or 43, and you would put it at the end. That is your page number. Now, Turabian uses a little bit different formatting depending on the kind of source it is. This is a book. If it were a journal article, or if it were a video or any other kind of source, you would just need to Google it. Go out on the internet and Google, how do I footnote a video in Turabian? It will give you the format. It'll give you the journal article. Okay, then the last thing you do is that for the footnote, you put your cursor in front of your subscript and you tab in one space for the first line. Okay. Now, the next time you do if you're going to footnote again, so this is the second time we do a footnote, then you will insert footnote again. Okay. It takes you here, but you want one space between the two footnotes. They're single spaced, but you want one space between them. Now, if I were citing a different text, then I would use the same guidelines at the top. What if I'm citing the same book in this second paragraph? Then you would use the convention called IBID, I-B-I-D, comma, and if it's a different page, you would put a different page, period. All right. So, and of course, this would be reduced to 10-point font. Okay, looks like it's already there. And this one's 10 points. So if there was the same page, you wouldn't put a page number, you just put IBID. Now, if we bleed over to the next page, and it's not, and say there's another footnote, say there's a third footnote here. Now watch this. If I were going to say I was going to add a third foot, or go back and add a footnote somewhere, and you've already got footnotes. When you do this, Microsoft Word automatically rearranges the numbers for you. So you're going to put a footnote number 2 in above this other footnote. It automatically moves the 3. It moves this to 3 and puts a 2 in, and then you can add another footnote. So if you want to do a separate source. Now, if you did a separate source, these for IBID to work, it has to be the immediate footnote after the major footnote. If there's one in between, say there's another source, let's just say Jones, I'm not going to do the whole footnote. Then on this third one, you want to go back and you will put Smith. As long as there's only one Smith in your directory of sources, then you would put in the page. So that's basically how that would operate. Okay. Now, feel free to email me with any questions you have about that. There are 2 things that you want to cite in your references. Number 1, any direct quotes. Let me remind you that in short papers, we rarely use long direct quotes. In my papers for PhD, which are 25 pages or so, I never use a long quote. They are blocked, indented, and blocked and single spaced if you do that. But I always try to use short snippets or a 1-sentence quote or whatever, but you always cite it in this manner. Also, if it's something you've taken, ideally when you read something, you want to summarize and cite it. So you're writing a summary of it, you're citing it, and when you do that, then you will also cite the information the same way that you've taken these ideas from this text, and this is the shorthand version of that. Okay, let me get out of this, and I'm going to attempt to pull up a bibliography that I'm working on to show you what this looks like. This is my latest class project for a class in the American Revolution that I'm taking. This is what your final page of your paper should look like. Bibliography, bolded, and then these are your sources. Now notice the differences here. Last name, first name, period, then book title, city, publisher, year. Single spaced, skip a space between each one. They're in alphabetical order. And I don't have an example here of a journal. Maybe I'll get some of those for you for the Wednesday night live chat. But these are all in alphabetical order. And these will refer back to those footnotes. For every footnote, you will have a source here. And for every source, you'll have a footnote that you've sorted, you've used it. One thing that I would request that you do, and this is now a common practice, is that you list your primary sources first and then list secondary. This is something we didn't talk very much about on Wednesday night, but let me impress upon you again what the difference is. I do not have any primary sources in this material yet. I have some, actually, I have a source coming by mail today, which I'll add. Primary sources are things that are written during the time that you're studying. If you are doing a history subject from the Roman era, you would look at Suetonius and other Roman writers. That's where I would really suggest you start reading for your research. That way you're reading the raw materials and you're not reading somebody else's opinion. Everybody in this secondary section here are writing after the fact. They did not live through the period I'm writing about, and they are giving their opinion based on the primary documents. So be sure you give some thought to primary sources. Some of you doing like Sumer, you know, there is one or two written sources, or the Egyptians, the Book of the Dead is a good example of a primary source from Egyptian history. And there are ways to do that. You realize, of course, that you are a step away from primary because they have been translated. Translation is almost in every case, there is not a word-to-word translation from one language to the other. So you have to apply reason and your ideas to that. So a translation can vary. Look at the Bible, how many different translations they are. Many of them have been retranslated through the years because we come to new knowledge on language, linguistics, all those things. Or in the case of the hieroglyphics of the Egyptians, the Rosetta Stone was discovered in the early 1800s when Napoleon captured Egypt, and that became the impetus to study archaeology. Archaeology was born in the 1800s, and I have some particular ideas about why that was important related to Christianity. And if you remember what was going on in the 1800s, they had Darwin and Lyell had come out with their theories of evolution, and Lyell his advanced age of the earth, which conflicted with prevailing biblical views and the application, the Enlightenment application of reason to everything. And so there's a move in the 1800s to apply reason to the Bible and to religion. And so archaeology really came to itself in trying to prove the Bible was accurate. And so much of archaeology goes on in the Middle East, in the Holy Land. As I've worked on some of those digs with, I met Kathleen Kuhlman in 1981, who was excavating Jericho. She's one of the oldest, best known women archaeologists in history. Met Vendel Jones in probably one of those trips. I've been 11 times. I don't remember which trip it was, but Vendel Jones was the namesake for Indiana Jones. And he was a Baptist minister, actually. And so there's a lot of great things about that, you know, most of you that like history, you know, for those of you that like history, I'm preaching to the choir. Your passion's already well known. For those of you that maybe history is not your main subject, but it's just a personal passion, it's all right to be have it as a hobby, right? I think history is a hobby for all of us. So I hope these things will help you a bit. And I'm always available. I can do one-on-one with you or whatever we can talk to. But the important thing is that you want to get a good start on this paper. If you don't, you will flounder through the entire term, and it's hard to get your footing back. Remember, as we go in, and we'll talk about this on Wednesday night, when we go into the milestone number 1, we're mainly looking at the introduction. That introduction should be half page at best, and you should lead with your thesis ideas and this, very quickly lead with the 3 societies that you are going to investigate, and that you're going to use all or part of these 7 lens. Those, you're already given the outline. You 3 cities and 7 structures. So you can pick all or any of them, as many of them as you can find, where you have proof to support your ideas. You are not the expert. That is why we have sources. Sources are our experts. These people have spent their lives studying these things. Why not pull them up to the witness stand, let them testify to support the ideas? That's why you're doing research. You're not just writing a report. And please realize there's a great difference between what you did most times in high school, where you took an encyclopedia or a site and you just wrote a report. You are doing research where these sources talk to each other. They may conflict with each other. If they do, be sure you explain why. Be sure you explain why there are no written sources for a society and the effect that oral history has. If you're doing Mesoamerica, you realize that there were no written languages for Native Americans. So most of our primary sources were Catholic priests writing their ideas and their thoughts about what they're seeing, and they have little or no communication with the natives enough to understand, well, this is how the Native Americans saw this. Columbus is a prime example of that. Go back and read Columbus's journal, and he read on to the Native Americans a lot of European stuff that is, raised lots of questions. He looked at Native Americans and said, well, they have no religion, because I don't see a Bible or a cross. The men are lazy. They go out and hunt and fish all day and leave the women to raise the kids and grow the food, not realizing that the men were hunting to bring protein to feed their families. In Europe, hunting was a pastime. It was recreation. These people are not intelligent, but they'll make good slaves. Those are the things that Columbus wrote about them that got translated into travel journals in Europe that set the entire scope of what they thought about Native Americans. They're savages, they're noble savages, all these things, but they're not civilized. So you can see the problems of our reading our bias onto material. So try to read with an open mind. And as this paper will tell you that I'm sending with this link, don't do things like, well, back in the day, blah, 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 or, that times were simpler then. No, my friend, times were never simpler. They might have been different. They didn't have technology, but let me tell you, technology is not the end of the world. Technology is probably making us dumber, if anything, but they lived, their lives were just as complicated in the period of time that they lived as ours are today. And they just didn't have as many tools maybe as we do to deal with things or understanding. Human knowledge is gradually moves, but today it's just infinitesimally fast. Do you realize that all of human knowledge now doubles every 18 months? They didn't have to struggle with that kind of a time frame. You and I did. And that's probably why you will be in school the rest of your life, just to keep up with that little major that you're working on. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. I hope to see you in live chat. I hope this is helpful, and I encourage you to respond. Talk to me. Tell me how I can help you. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to take care of you. I have nothing going on in my life more important than taking care of you. So please, let's look forward to a good time, good paper. I want you to leave this class saying this is the best class that I've ever had. And to do that, we've got to get started right. Thank you so much.